Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Teacher Raph. This is Twilight Zone episode 179. I'll be talking about another film and its possible predictions for our present time and our future. Today we're talking about film THX 1138, released in 1971. It's an hour and a half by George Lucas. If you go to IMDb, you can scroll down and read about it. In the 25th century, a time when people have designations instead of names, a man, THX 1138, that's his name, okay, and a woman, LUH 3417, rebel against their rigidly controlled society. Writers George Lucas, story by, and Walter Murch, screenplay by. Stars Robert Duvall, Donald Pleasance, and Don Pedro Coley. If you browse Reddit or just go to a search engine and check out some comments, some people will tell you what the film may have predicted. Let's see what these comments say. THX 1138 was to be an artifact from the future. So was Minority Report. What else? What cinematic movies feel most like an artifact from the future? Primer and Upstream Color are grounded in the now and just weird. Bits of WALL-E felt like they were from the future. But what movies take the cinematic language of the film and twist and mutate it in new futuristic ways? Okay, here's another one from Reddit. George Lucas 1971 interview about THX 1138 predicts a future where anyone can distribute videos. And it just, interestingly enough, I tried to open this link here, but it's privatized. So unless you know the owner of the video, I can't get a code to watch it. Let's see, what else does it say? How interesting that he was trying to get into animation at Warner Brothers. That's something I've never heard before. The interviewer, Gene Youngblood, almost predicts the rise of YouTube starting at 2215. Again, I tried looking at these links, but unfortunately, I don't believe that they actually opened. See, video unavailable. Here's another one. George Lucas predicted the future of religion in THX 1138. If you scroll down, 11 years ago, someone commented, I liked his take on TV. 4 channels, naked guy dancing, naked woman dancing, 2 people, you know, cop beating naked man. I love the cop beating the naked man channel, but it's always on the same time as 2 people, you know, copulating TiVo. Now, what's really interesting is THX 1138 came out in 1971. The Misfits had a song called We Are 138, and it came out in 1978, I believe. And some of these lyrics, let's look at them real quick. We are 138. It's repeated in the eyes of tiger. Now, we are in the year of the water tiger. FYI, Chinese astrology, year of the water tiger 2022. Let's read some of these lyrics. Do you think we're robot clean? Does his face look almost mean? Is it time to be an android, not a man? The pleasantries are gone. We're stripped of all we were in the eyes of tiger. We are 138. We are 138. So we are 138. That is some type of code. If you know what it is, make a comment. Okay, back to Reddit. What do you guys think of THX 1138? This person loved the movie. He says some people find it bland and boring. He likes all white sets because it makes it haunting. It's kind of like a psychiatric ward kind of thing, you know. Most original premise. He says it's not the most original premise because it's reminiscent of 1984, but I think it's the best dystopian film ever. May very well be his favorite movie. Okay, so other people say they remember their dad telling them about it when he watched Star Wars. I finally watched it. Special edition with added CGI. It was great. Atmosphere, aesthetics left an impression on him. And he thinks the CGI touch-ups did it really well, especially the car on the highway and the monkey creatures that attack THX. Fun fact, the beating sounds at the beginning of 9 Inch Nails' Mr. Self-Destruct are from the beating video THX watches. The website Retrozap.com. Retrozap.com. We scroll down. Here's an image from the movie. Okay, THX 1971 Sci-Fi Saturday, January 11, 2020 by Jovial J. The influence of THX 38 goes beyond Easter eggs in Star Wars films and the naming of a sound system. Remember? Sound system, THX? 1138 was George Lucas's first foray into the science fiction arena and his first mainstream film, released 2 years before American Graffiti. Fun fact, American Graffiti actually was also, early draft was written by one of my teachers at UCLA. It presents a cold and dystopian look at the bleak future where love is outlawed and mankind is ruled by robots. First impressions. The trailer presents a dystopian look at the 21st century where love is the ultimate perversion and people are now known by code numbers, such as the hero of the story THX 1138. The calm and omnipresent voiceover reminds the viewer that everything is under control and that There have been no pursuits or escapes, though that's exactly what it looks like based on the imagery. There are police officers with silver faces, and the humans have their heads shaved and wear white jumpsuits. A cold-looking future to be sure. Just what sort of world does THX 1138 have in store? The fiction of the film takes place in a futuristic world where all people wear white jumpsuits, shaved heads, patrolled by shiny chrome robotic police officers. Protagonist 1138, played by Robert Duvall, is a worker in a factory that produces these robots. His days consist of going to work, stopping at the prayer booth, and going home to his Spartan residence to watch holographic pornography and news. One night, his roommate LUH-3417 Maggie Megomi switches out his sedation pill. The next day, he feels off. He comes home and passes out. LUH rubs his hand across her face, or rubs her hand across his face. She sits with him until he awakens. While off his sedation meds, he has become sexually aroused by LUH, and the two make love. She's concerned that people are watching. Surveillance is always around them, including inside the medicine cabinet, but he says they are safe. SEN 5241 Donald Pleasance, who monitors surveillance cameras, does see them and blackmails LUH to get THX as his new roommate. His old one was destroyed. THX tells SEN to leave him alone, but SEN continues to pressure him, including lying to get THX selected as his roommate. THX reports SEN for a shift change violation. At work, THX nearly causes an accident at the manufacturing plant when he drops a radioactive rod due to being off his meds. THX is arrested for drug evasion as well as malicious sexual perversion and put in prison along with SEN. The stark, white, seemingly endless prison finds guards, both unseen humans and robotic officers, attempting to modify THX's behavior using physical, electronic, and psychological means. LUH is allowed to see THX and tells him she is pregnant. They make love again before she is escorted away. An older prisoner, PTO Ian Wolfe, the actor, tries to calm the radical talk from SEN. THX decides to leave, and he and SEN begin walking into the whiteness. After some unspecified period of time, they encounter SRT Don Pedro Coley, the actor, who introduces himself as a hologram. It's unclear if he is a holographic actor or actually believes himself to be a hologram. He leads them out through a hidden door into a busy passageway of people. SEN becomes separated and ends up in a train station where he is re-arrested. SRT tells THX that LUH has been killed and that her designation has been given to a new fetus. THX is saddened. THX and SRT steal police cars to escape. SRT crashes his immediately, but THX gets away. Two officers on motorcycles, evading them. He crashes his cruiser in an abandoned tunnel and makes a run for it. He manages to evade several shell dwellers, small simian-human hybrids that live in the superstructure of the city. THX climbs a giant ladder upwards out of the city. The police officers tell him he'll never survive outside, but are soon told to terminate the pursuit as they have gone over budget. THX emerges through a hole onto the surface of the planet, a giant orange sun setting behind him, finally free of the sterile controlling society. Work hard, increase production, prevent accidents, and be happy. Voiceover loudspeaker. History in the making. As a brief note of introduction, there are several versions of this film in existence, see below, and for purposes of this review, the 2004 director's cut was the one most readily available to be viewed. In comparison between the 71 version and the 2004 edition, better envisions Lucas's vision for the film without changing the nature of the film dramatically. THX 38 was George Lucas's first directorial experience after his tenure at the University of Southern California School of Cinema Television. It was an updated and expanded version of one of his student films, a short called Electronic Labyrinth, THX 1138 4EB. The student film was a creative exercise in setting pace, cinematography, and tone, which a feature film captures and expands on. Of course, this would set Lucas off on a course to direct Star Wars, the most groundbreaking sci-fi film of all time within just 6 years, which followed his ode to the 1950s in American graffiti. In the early 70s, America was still in the throes of Vietnam War, and the political careers of many were leading towards the Watergate debacle. Civil unrest, as thousands protested in the streets, was common, and the good feelings from the 60s had finally evaporated. Many films, specifically sci-fi films, illustrate a more dystopian and wretched world than had been depicted previously. The stark society shown in THX 1138 works as an extension of the previous film Sci-Fi Saturdays reviewed, Colossus, The Forbidden Project. Imagine if a computer had taken over the world. Would the future be a place where drug-induced humans who are not allowed to procreate or even love build future visions of robotic jailers? But more about this in a bit. The film's biggest achievement is its use of editing, both of sound and picture, to create a mood. 85-minute film was shot existing and futuristic locations that provided bland and stark color palettes. The concrete block style of architecture and the lack of extraneous props in the residences, such as paintings or personal items, set a tone of institutionalization. Lucas's editing technique was to match up conflicting imagery, such as cutting from THX and LUH making love and being worried that they are being watched, to a group of citizens looking into the camera, which creates a jarring or unsettling feeling in the viewer. Standard editing techniques like the shot reaction shot method, in which a shot of the character looking is followed by what they see, is used interspersed with the constant close-ups of video monitors. The use of banks of video monitors showed that the public was being observed at all times, including in their private lives. Oftentimes, these images were matched with extraneous voices, either controllers or possibly a loudspeaker making an announcement, which provides an eerie vision of dystopian future. Genreification. The future as seen from the 70s is a bleak one indeed, based on some of the sci-fi films in the early half of the decade and ones that will be reviewed here. Besides Colossus and THX, The Omega Man, Clockwork Orange, CPG, Soylent Green all provide dark and melancholy depictions of the direction in which the world was headed. While many dystopian films are often filmed in a dark and clouded style, THX 1138 instead was a bright, overly lit film. The brightness in no way minimized the mood of oppression and surveillance that the film put forth. In fact, it creates little spaces or darkness for the populace to hide and feel safe. Besides making a conscious decision to create a black and white world on a color film stock, Lucas also peppered the future with video monitors, surveillance devices, presaging the coming of a surveillance state. If the lighting left nowhere for the public to hide, the omnipresent video cameras watched constantly by other members of society, it left no actual place to hide. The observance of a person's medication use or the monitoring of their actual body functions, just like the video I made about the patent 060606, and take a look at that. Okay, in my playlist, The Twilight Zone. The control groups know all about THX's breathing, heart rate, and sedation levels. Patent 060606. Look at my video, Twilight Zone playlist. Seems to reek of the Big Brother state as depicted in George Orwell's 1984, possibly the grandfather of all dystopian fiction. Those themes are also echoed by the constant reminders to be happy or buy more now. That pepper the film with their monotonous robotic voices. In the fact, these announcements and the zombie-like state of the populace appear to depict Lucas's opinion of the American consumer. In a world where love is outlawed, people find solace in their work, their consumption of pills, and their holographic televisions. The TV shows depicted include nude dancing females and males, talking head news style program that informs the viewer of offenses committed by others, and a feed of an officer beating a man. Sex, violence, and surveillance, all wrapped up in an anxiety-laced package to subdue the populace. Work hard and be happy. It's no wonder that they need to consume sedation medication. Societal commentary. THX 1138 creates a stark and depressing future to highlight the themes of humanity and freedom, themes that Lucas would go on to expand upon in his Star Wars saga of films. THX and LUH are roommates but not mates, as sexual intercourse is termed a sexual perversion and a transgression. The sedation pills prevent one's libido from kicking in, kind of like antidepressants. So once off of them, THX, who LUH pronounces as THX, at one point sounding like sex rather than the letters THX, becomes sexually aroused. In this world, the ones in charge, the state, the computer, unseen masters, keep the populace like cattle, chemically castrated and working to produce more machines by which to control the society. They produce new members not by normal means of procreation sex, but through possible cloning and in vitro fertilization, raising fetuses in jars. It's also assumed that the populace is kept at a constant size by recycling the designations of its members. When LUH, whose designation sounds like love, is consumed, killed, her numbers are provided to a new fetus to live again as the same designation. Might this idea provide that a new THX 1138 exists after the old one escapes? Now think about this for a second. They produce new members, not by normal means of procreation, but through possible cloning and in vitro fertilization, raising fetuses in jars. Okay, we got there. It's also assumed that the populace is kept at a constant size That means that they don't want the population to go beyond a specific number. And when it does, the additional numbers are taken out. I mean, that's recycled, as it says, recycling the designations of its members. Just like the big rocks in Georgia, and how it says to keep a population of 500 million. Take a look up that. I'll put a link. Okay, of course, the biggest evolution of humanity is the use of designations for people. Devolution rather than names. The protagonist is not Robert. He's a 3 alphanumeric characters and 4 numbers, much like a telephone number. A simple yet dehumanizing way to present the people as things and not persons. The only other beings that are seen are the diminutive shell dwellers, Pharaoh and Simeon, looking in the wild but more dwarf-like when presented in the society. They live outside society in the superstructure of the city and are viewed entirely as numbers. The one that is captured and put in prison with THX is identified as nondescript 6431399, truly unhuman. It's only at the end of the film, when THX escapes the underground prison that has been his life, that he is shown to be truly free. Free of the drugs, free of repression, and free of the monochromatic existence of the masses. Hey, think about this for a moment. So, he's put in prison, okay, and there's another person captured, and they don't have a name. They have a nondescript number, kind of like prisoners, right? So, it's very interesting, because prisoners don't have the right to vote, and they don't really have a name. They have a number that's kept in some computer log. Okay, let's keep going. His breath of fresh air symbolized the individual's quest to find purpose and freedom from the confines of the system. Another thing you should really think about, the ending of this movie is THX 1138, played by Robert Duvall, finally gets up through a shaft, opens the manhole into nature, okay, and he sees a big orange sun, and there's trees and nature all around him. So I believe that this movie is not only saying, you know, escape the confines of surveillance and control by some crazy system that we're born into and brainwashed to believe in, but also that nature is the answer. Think about that. Okay, let's keep going. Yet another element in the film that shows an individual's worth is measured and calculated, and when risk outweighs reward, they are discarded, whether in death, as may be usual, as with LUH or SCN's original roommate, or they escaped as THX does. The science in the fiction. THX 1138 presents a world that is an extrapolation of the 20th century technology. Mankind is controlled by and uses computers on a daily basis. Children are taught by an infusion of intravenous drugs and then grow up to operate complex and precise mechanical machines in order to build even greater robotic android-like machines that are used in a never-ending circle of surveillance and control. There are still vehicles in this future, cars, motorcycles, subways, which don't seem too much different from modern-day conveyances. The use of subways as a means to convey the masses to and from the factories is understandable, but the cars and motorcycles, individual units of freedom for single occupants, are seen as methods of transport for the police only. The android police army works as peacekeepers, jailers, and enforcers of the status quo. Occasionally, these officers malfunction. One scene shows a silver-faced officer turning and repeatedly bumping into a wall. Even the technology in this future wants to break from routine. The holographic entertainment systems also appear to be an extension of 20th century television programming, something that the filmmakers equate to a drug as well. The 2004 edition of the film, with its computer-generated updates, also includes a masturbation device with the projections to make explicit what THX is accomplishing in his daily entertainment feed, a reflection of the world in which we live, and also a fearful portent that there's always further to fall. So it's really interesting. Stop and think about this for a second. So these technological advances that we have in society are fantastic. We love them. We're addicted to them mentally, psychologically, because of this serotonin release that happens in our brains. They figured out our psychology, and they're using it against us to keep us kind of asleep in this world of entertainment. But let me put it this way. Some of that entertainment and some of this world is really great, but the problem is that they didn't come in and teach us how to create a good, healthy balance, right? How to break out of that world, right? How to build positive relationships, or understand who we are, know thyself, right? And function with our strengths and build upon them. and understand that from an early age in order to build a life that we're happy with, instead of trying to figure out how to escape a system that we're miserable with. Okay, so let's keep going. The final frontier, as mentioned initially, THX 1138 has several different versions. The original 71 release is not even the original version. The studio excised 5 minutes of footage prior to release against Lucas's wishes. Upon the success of Star Wars 77, this film was re-released with the 5 minutes restored, and that was how the VHS and Laserdisc versions existed for almost 25 years. Then in 2004, buoyed by the 70 release of his special additions to the Star Wars trilogy and the success of the digital effects in the Star Wars prequel trilogy, Lucas released a director's cut of the film which clarified his vision of the future. Many establishing shots were expanded in scope, with digital backgrounds and extras added. There were also minor editing changes, shot order, sound effects to certain scenes in order to better convey plot or tone. Finally, the whole film was color corrected and a digital master was created to preserve the film for future generations. A full and detailed analysis of the changes can be seen at this link. Okay, so there's a link here. Okay, without the success of Star Wars, this film may have only been remembered only as a footnote in the career of Francis Ford Coppola, as that sci-fi film produced by the director of The Godfather and Apocalypse Now. As it stands, the footnote is now that Coppola produced George Lucas's sci-fi epic. Of course, the actors, only a few are instantly recognizable. Robert Duvall was known for his roles in To Kill a Mockingbird, True Grit, and MASH before starring as THX. He, of course, would go on to strong acclaim in Coppola's Godfather saga and Apocalypse Now, as well as many other films. Donald Pleasance was a character actor known for his role as the Forger in The Great Escape, and Ernest Blofeld in the James Bond film You Only Live Twice, as well as previously reviewed sci-fi film Fantastic Voyage, and will become known for his work in the Halloween film franchise. Don Pedro Colley had a bit part in the 70 film Beneath the Planet of the Apes, while Ian Wolfe was a versatile character actor, maybe best known for his roles in the original Star Trek series. The film even features a small cameo by Sid Haig, one of the prisoners in THX's cell, best known as Captain Spaulding in Rob Zombie's horror films. The name THX 1138 has also pervaded American culture in Easter eggs and references to the film. Most notably, the Lucas-founded sound design company, THX Limited Ltd, took its name from the film. Many filmgoers will be familiar with the THX Deep Note sound intro from many a summer blockbuster. Lucas would also stick the number 1138 into his films as an Easter egg, a homage to his first film. Many other directors who are fans of the film as well have taken to doing the same thing. George Lucas's THX 1138 still stands as a challenging film that predicts a scary dystopian future. It also stands as a darker entry in his pantheon of films, his only R-rated film. It demonstrates a strong thematic understanding of how film is uniquely qualified to depict complex emotions and create a world that cannot be unseen. THX 1138 is a more adult-styled film, even by other sci-fi films of the time, that stands as a strong entry in the early 70s depiction of dystopian fiction. Now, if we go to IMDb and we take a look at the plot, it says, in the 25th century, a time when people have designations instead of names, a man, THX 1138, and a woman, LUH 3417, rebel against their rigidly controlled society. Okay, so just spoiler alert, I'm going to be reading this, so it will go into the synopsis and you can understand what this movie actually predicted for our time, and what has not taken place yet, and hopefully it won't take place, but apparently or allegedly it probably has taken place in some secret underground bunkers. Okay, so here we go. It's sometime in the future in a state-controlled society where conformity and homogeneity are the rule. What is also the rule is that the populace follows the wants of the faceless state without question. How this is achieved is through a mandatory drug regime, which also suppresses human desire, with sexual intercourse and human relationships banned. The law of the state is policed by a force of robocops. The physical environment is totally within a manufactured enclosure. What being outside of this unknown? THX 1138 is a loyal subject who goes about his business as a skilled factory working building robocops, and even when he begins to have strange feelings, he does what is obliged by going to the state-run confessional, which further brainwashes through its reinforced mantra of happiness, loyalty, and understanding. THX 1138 is given a glimpse into the other side through his computer-matched and thus appointed female roommate, LUH 3417, and her surveillance colleague, SEN at 5241. LUH 3417's vision, which may be something that THX 1138 may want to continue despite its illegality. If THX 1138 is able to keep his activities from the authorities and the Robocops, he will have to figure out what options are available to him. George Lucas adapted this, his first film, from a short he made at university. THX 1138, LUH 3417's SCM 5041 attempts to escape from a futuristic society located beneath the surface of the Earth. The society has outlawed sex, drugs used to control the people. THX 1138 stops taking the drugs and gets LUH 3417 pregnant. They are both thrown in jail, where they meet SEN 5241 and start to plan their escape. The human race has been relocated to an underground city beneath the Earth's surface, where the population is entertained by holographic TV and broadcast sex and violence, and a robotic police force enforces the law. Society controls all life. All citizens are drugged to control their emotions and behavior, and sex is a crime. Factory worker THX 1138 stops taking the drugs, then breaks the law by falling in love with his roomie LUH 3417. LUH 3417 gets pregnant. THX 1138 is jailed, escaping from jail with illegal programmer SEN 5041 and a hologram named SRT. THX 1138 goes in search of LUH 3417, escapes to the surface with robotic police in pursuit. Okay, so here's the synopsis. Okay, so we already have heard this, but let's go into a little bit further detail. In the 21st century, sexual intercourse, reproduction are prohibited, whereas use of mind-altering drugs is mandatory to enforce compliance among the citizens and to ensure their ability to conduct dangerous, demanding tasks. Emotions, coitus, and the concept of family are taboo. Everyone is clad in identical uniforms and has shaven heads to emphasize equality, except the police androids, who are black and robed monks. Instead of names, people have designations with 3 arbitrary letters referred to as the prefix and 4 digits known on an identity badge worn at all times. At their jobs in Central Video Control Center, SEN 5041 and LUH 3417 keep surveillance on the city. LUH has a male roommate, THX 1138, who works in a factory producing android police officers. At the beginning of the story, THX leaves the job while the loudspeakers urge the workers to increase safety and congratulate them for only losing 195 workers in the last period to the competing factory's 242. On the way home, he stops at a confession booth in a row of many and mumbles prayers about party masses under the portrait of Om. Oh. A soothing voice greets THX, and Om ends every confession with a parting salutation. You are a true believer. Blessings of the state, blessings of the masses. Work hard, increase production, prevent accidents, and be happy. At home, THX takes his drugs and watches hollow broadcasts while engaging with a masturbatory device. LUH secretly substitutes pills in her possession for THX medications, whereupon THX eventually suffers physical discomfort, vomiting, along with mental emotional changes, confusion. The drug substitution also leads to LUH and THX becoming involved romantically, resulting in the two engaging in intercourse. THX later is confronted by SEN, who arranges THX as his new roommate, but THX files a complaint against SEN for the illegal housing mate change. Without drugs in his system, THX falters during a critical and hazardous phase of his job, and a control center engages a mind lock on THX, which raises the level of danger. After the release of the mind lock, THX makes the necessary correction to that work phase. THX and LUH are arrested. THX enjoys a brief reunion with LUH, disrupted shortly after she reveals her pregnancy. At THX's trial, THX is sentenced to prison alongside SEN. Most of the prisoners seem uninterested in escape, but eventually THX and SEN find an exit, and they are later joined by hologram SRT 5752, who starred in the holo broadcasts. During the escape, THX and SRT are separated from SEN, chased by the police robots. THX and SRT are trapped in a control center, from which THX learns that LUH has been consumed and her name has been reassigned to fetus 66691 in a growth chamber. SEN eventually escapes to an area reserved for the monks of Om, where a lone monk notices that SEN has no identification badge. SEN attacks and later wanders into a child-rearing area, strikes up a conversation with children. She sits aimlessly until police androids apprehend him. Or it would be her, right? Okay, THX and SRT steal 2 cars, but SRT crashes his into a concrete pillar. Pursued by 2 police androids on motorcycles, THX flees to the limits of the city and escapes into a ventilation shaft. The police androids pursue him on motorcycles along the ventilation shaft to an escape ladder, but are ordered by Central Command to cease pursuit on grounds that the expense of his capture exceeds their budget by 6%. The city is then revealed to be entirely underground, and THX has escaped onto the surface, where he then witnesses the sun setting. If we go to this website, newyork.edu, it's Kimon, KIMON.hosting.nyu.edu. Science fiction, humanity, technology, the present, the future, exploring cognitive estrangement in THX 1138. Cognitive estrangement. Wow. Isn't that a theme for our present reality? It goes into talking about the plot and so forth, but down here it says, the final image of THX 1138 is a man rising triumphantly from the depths of a hellish nightmare and standing in the sun. But what about all the people who still remain enslaved below? Very disturbing. So some people are still asleep, right? That's what it's trying to say. What about this looks and feels familiar to me? How far from this are we now? How can we avoid this? Something to really think about. I just wanted to say thank you for tuning in, and if you would like to support me, you can go to my channel, hit the about page and scroll down, and you'll see the links on the very bottom right is support small business and donate. You can donate anything you'd like if you'd like to help me out, or you can take a look at the adventure guides that I have published, which will help you anytime you're looking for a vacation. I talk about some do's and don'ts, and also give you a location of a very affordable hotel in order to save you money, and other details. Thank you for listening very much as always. Take care, be safe, hit like, make a comment, and share this link.